Okay, well, today's webinar will be on how to post your own video to YouTube. And you'll see a little bit on why I named it exactly what I did. First of all, a brief look at the agenda. We're going to be talking very briefly about copyright issues as it would relate to having content up on YouTube. And then I'm going to do a demonstration of uploading a video straight into YouTube, and then talk a little bit about other options, other ways that you might end up loading videos into YouTube. I guess maybe to start out the discussion, though, before getting on to any of those points, why focus on YouTube? Well, my own personal opinion from experience is that YouTube just works pretty much across platform, across browser. It just delivers the videos well. The infrastructure of YouTube is effective, and so things that are loaded into YouTube can be consumed just about by any device, by any setup that a student's likely to have. As such, although in other places I show how to connect the videos in YouTube, during a previous workshop, a faculty member pointed out that, in fact, I never really talked about how to get your own videos into YouTube to then consume them through Blackboard or other ways. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. All right. So first of all, a little bit about copyright, that horrible little thing. I will give all the disclaimers. I'm not a lawyer. I really don't know copyright law that well. I know there are a few key points that keep coming up when faculty consider using copyrighted materials. Of course, everything is under copyright that gets created just by virtue of it being created. And so if you make something, it's automatically you're the copyright holder if it's really your creation. But when it comes to using other pieces of material, you might be considering using something under fair use, or if it's for distance ed, the material that you're planning to use might fall under the Teach Act, and that's how you're authorized to use it. You want to make sure that you're not violating the terms of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And in fact, on the handout that I'm going to send near the end of this session, I'll include some links to different resources about copyright so that you can look them up. And if you're viewing this in the archive, they're going to be on that archive page, so you can just grab it there. Because the focus of this workshop is not to talk about material where the copyright is held by someone else. It's going to be your own material, so copyright issues should not even come into it. All right. With no further prevarications, I'm going to jump into a little demonstration of how to do a upload of a video file straight into YouTube. All right, so I'm going to fire up the application sharing function here. And hopefully that's going to work for everyone. You'll be able to see my screen, and it should be included in the recording as well. And I've just got the, this is in the Chrome browser, and I have browsed to the YouTube website. Okay. Now, if you didn't already have an account with YouTube, you could create one easily enough, but I do have an account, so I'm going to use that for this session. Now, I will if the browser lets me log in properly. All right, there's my username. Enter in the password. And of course, most of the time on your own computer, you just tell it to remember who you are on the system, and then whenever you'd return to YouTube, it would just let you in. Now, you might say, well, now that I'm logged into YouTube, what's the secret to uploading stuff? That's what this little upload link is, right up pretty much top center. YouTube's primary use is looking at video. The secondary use, obviously, uploading video. In fact, I've heard that there's like 60 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. That's insane. So when you click that upload link, it'll take you to a page that has some choices for how you might want to get your video into the YouTube system. If you have a webcam hooked up, you could just start recording from a webcam. Now, the good of that is that it's very simple to just do an impromptu video. The bad is that it's going to be recording yourself, and, well, at least if you're me, you don't really want that much video of yourself out there in the wild, right? If you have a bunch of different video files that you wanted to upload, you could use this upload multiple files choice that would let you just pick files off of your computer. But what I'm going to do right here is grab a file that I got off of a video camera, and I'm just going to drag it up here onto the screen. And as soon as I do that, it starts the upload process. And as you can hopefully see in the little status bar in the window here, it just chugs away uploading it. Obviously, if you were on a dial-up connection or something, that would take much longer. Now, the file that I uploaded is one that I recorded off of a Kodak camera that we have here in Academic Technology, a really simple one. It does a good job of recording, but it saves in the MOV file format. That's a QuickTime file, basically. And I picked that particular file because it would give me the worst experience for uploading content. Yes, that's right. I picked the worst possible option here just to show you the absolute worst scenario for when you're uploading your video file. In this case, it's warning me in this orange bar that because it's an MOV file, under certain circumstances, I might have a bad file that I'm uploading. And they've got a link right there to all of the solutions to the problems that I actually don't have in this case because my MOV file is working. Okay. So we'll scroll down the screen here and see what it's asking us by default. It wants a title for it. The file name was actually just camera sample, so I'm going to only very slightly modify that to make it look a little more readable. You should give your videos a description when you upload them. You can change this at any time after the fact, but I'll just list here what is actually in the footage. You should also be tagging your video, and actually as you describe it, you may notice that this tag list expanded out a little, things that YouTube was suggesting as tags, but in my case I'm going to reject all of those options and just put a couple of tags that I think are appropriate. And down here at the bottom, it wants to know which of these images would I want to use as the thumbnail. Now, for this particular video clip, it really doesn't make much difference. I barely have any motion in here, and it's an 8-second video. But what YouTube tries to do is suggest what should appear when it's in thumbnail view, so you'd want to pick whichever is the most appropriate image that it shows. All right, well that takes care of our first column of stuff. Now let's look over here on the right and choose a category for the video. Depending upon what you're doing, you might pick one of these, but I almost always end up categorizing mine under education because that's the bulk of what I do on YouTube. Now, there's privacy settings for these videos. The default behavior would be to make it public so that anyone can see it, and most of the time that's exactly what you would want. Or if you wanted to restrict it to only a few people, you might pick private, in which case you would have to send direct invitations to people and give them permission to view the video, or just keep it for your own consumption. Alternately, there's this like happy medium choice here, unlisted. It is a publicly accessible video, but you'd have to know where it was to go see it. And YouTube does a pretty good job of scrambling up what the addresses are these videos go to, so people are not likely to just guess the address of your video. Okay. In this case, I'm going to just stick with a purely private video, since this is just for demonstration purposes anyway. Most of the time you'll probably be using either public or unlisted. And then once you've made all of these changes, you would just make sure that you've saved everything. In this case it did autosave. And now, we'll go back up to the top of the screen here. When I go and open up my users list of controls and go to the video manager, I should see my video at the top of the list of all of the videos I've uploaded. Huh, how ironic it isn't there. Okay, that took me by surprise. Perhaps it hasn't finished processing the video yet. Gee, what a great demonstration, huh? Well, at this point I wanted to ask, I mean, that process, did that seem pretty comprehensible, or did that seem like it might cause some difficulties? If you have questions at this point, go ahead and chime in with them while I try to figure out why my listing of the video is not showing up. Okay, well, I'm guessing no questions then. I've been poking around behind the scenes trying to figure out why it has not given me the link to the video on my upload list. So let me unpause this and see what we can come up with here. You can see a thumbnail on the history. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me actually. There we go. That looks a little better. Okay. So, and this is what you should see right after an upload, is an entry for the video just at the top of your list. Now I have, as of this date, 139 uploads, so maybe my list just takes a little longer to refresh. As you start uploading your own content, you might be surprised at how quickly that list grows. What you would do with any of these, when you would go to the page, the one thing that I almost always have to do when I visit a page for a video is pause it so that I don't have to listen to the darn thing. There we go. It took me 6 seconds to get the video to pause, and it was only an 8-second video. But when you're reviewing your videos, you can always go and change any of that information that you set. That's usually under settings is where the good stuff is. So you could post videos and control whether people can comment on them, vote on them, respond with other videos, things like that. For the videos that I've used for academic purposes, I usually shut down pretty much all the commenting. Because, well, frankly, if I want my students to comment on things, I want them to do it like in my Blackboard course or somewhere. You might want some other options depending upon exactly the use that you're planning for this video. If it's something personal, you might really want the comments to be turned on. The one thing that I pretty much always do leave on, though, is the ability for external sites to embed the video, because that way I would be able to go into my Blackboard course and actually connect to this video and have it show up embedded in that course. So it's a good idea to leave that one on if you're planning on using it with students in Blackboard. And then once you've made these changes, you just say, you know, save changes, and it pretty much right away will change everything. There are some basic video editing controls in YouTube as well, which is kind of going beyond the original scope of this webinar, but they're worth mentioning that if you accidentally filmed something with your camera, you know, tipped on edge and you want to fix it, you could come in here after you'd uploaded the file and just use one of these rotation buttons to, oh yes, have to pause it. Use the rotation buttons to just flip it up on its side so it's correctly upright. If you're doing a lot of shaky camera work like I always do, you could just hit the stabilize button, and it does a pretty good job of trimming up the video feed and making it look a little better. And then they also have some detailed controls for things like the lighting and the well, I mean, you can just point at these and see what the controls do. I mean, most of us don't really know what color temperature is going to mean until we start fiddling with the controls. And they even have a little button for "I'm feeling lucky." You know, that's Google's way of saying take the first choice. What this would do is give its best guess as to what the video needs to make it look good. Okay? And then you would make any of those changes. You could also use the trim control for chopping off like the start or the end of the video in case you had some bad camera work or you stumbled a little on getting your recording started. It's just basic little controls for cleaning everything up afterwards. And then you could save this, and it would actually take a while to post the updated version of the video. Yeah. Keeps happening in YouTube. Every time you navigate to a new page, you have to pause the video. Anyway, what you would want to do then, once you'd gone through and you edited everything, you'd say save, and then not advertise your video until the editing process was done, or else what it would start showing people is the original clip, not the edited one, which is certainly not what you'd want. So give it, you know, an hour, come back, and I'm sure it would be done, and you'd be able to start, you know, publicizing your own videos. So that was really it. That was uploading the video into YouTube, the simple part of it. Now, that was based on having an MOV file on my computer originally, and you know, maybe that's not what you're going to have. Depending on the camera you have, you might end up with you know, a variety of different file formats. The beauty is YouTube will accept just about every file format that comes out of a camera. In fact, in the handout for this webinar, I'll include a link to all of the, well, they say all of the supported YouTube formats, but really it's more general than that. YouTube will mention a few formats that they officially support and then say that pretty much they support all the other ones. Just try them and chances are they'll work. So unless you have a really unusual video camera, you're probably going to end up with a file format that you can just drag directly into YouTube. But let's say this isn't something that you're filming from a camera. Perhaps you're assembling a lot of clips from some other program, like in the Windows Live Movie Maker or iMovie on a Mac, or you're taking screenshots or screen recordings using Camtasia, and you want to get those movies up into YouTube. What would you do? Well, it's even easier than what this was. On each of those programs, like here's Camtasia, you would say that you could just share that straight to YouTube. The same thing in Windows Live Movie Maker. You would just go here and say you want to publish your movie straight to YouTube, or if you're using iMovie on the Mac, right on their share menu is an option to share straight to YouTube. And in each of these programs, as soon as you tell it that you want to share your movie out to YouTube, it starts asking you for all of those same pieces of information that the YouTube website asked for that we saw before. And you know, you just fill in the boxes and then hit the button to upload the video, and that's when you've got to step away for a while. What I've found is that if you already have a video file and you drag it right up to YouTube, that process goes very, very quickly. Whereas the upload process in most of the editing programs I've experimented with seems to take quite a bit longer. In the case of Camtasia that I'm most familiar with, it can take, well, for a short movie, let's say maybe 5 minutes, I would expect that YouTube would process the thing, you know, upload the file and then process the video within 5 minutes. Camtasia might very well take 10 or 15 minutes. So if you have a really long compilation movie that you want to upload straight from one of these programs into YouTube, you might be better off you know, starting the upload process and then go get a sandwich or something, because it may take a while. All right, that concludes the organized portion of today. Let me send out the handout that I have been promising a couple of times here. so that the participants can have those links to the different resources. And while we wait for that to pass out to everyone, did anyone have any questions? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to call an absence of questions a successful job. So that was how to post your own video to YouTube. And, well, thank you for your attention.